Well, believe it or not, we're actually at the end of this introduction. This is our sixth class today, and we're going to really be looking at the bridging portals. And I guess of all the things that the very reputation of dream and dream analysis, dream as revelation, dream as information, dream as so many things, dream as something that can be interpreted to be of value. All of it is rooted in the bridging portals. All of it. And the bridging portals in and of themselves are very unusual. In any look at the design of forms, that is looking at the various forms and their designs, that all of the lower forms, that is all of the forms other than human, that all of the lower forms have what are called bridging gates. That is, they are known as cross-special gates. So, for example, when we are looking at the mammal and looking at mammalian design, the mammal has more cross-special gates than any other form. All other forms are limited to a single cross-special connection or potential. It's one of the things, for example, that I talked a lot about when we were looking at the rise of bird flu in the world, and the fact that we were dealing with the design of birds, and in looking at the design of birds, seeing that birds have the potential of the 44th gate, but they don't have the 26th. The 44th gate being their cross-special gate, their bridging portal. And of course opens them up to, in particular, humanity, amongst other things. The bridging portals are a way in which one species can impact another. And so in that sense, they're quite profound. When we look at the mammal, with the complexity of the mammal has these three gates. That is the 62nd gate, the 12th gate, and the 19th gate. But they don't have the other side of those three. These are the three bridging gates of the mammal. And it is through these three bridging gates that their relationship is established with humanity. If it were not for these bridging gates, there would be no relationship between humankind and mammalian kind. I mean, it is something really to grasp. And the way in which mammals connect to humans is that in one way they try to connect to the human mind. So they have the potential of the 62, but they have no neocortex, they have no ajna center. But this is their way through what is their detail. It is their way of being able to learn from and being able to be trained by humans. Humans take great pride in their ability to be able to train mammals, all kinds of mammals. And this very training of mammals can be found in this cross-special connection. But the ones that the mammals really care about are emotional. No other species has an emotional system, has a solar plex system. The mammal has its capacity in two ways to be able to connect to the human solar plex, from the 19 to the 49 and from the 12 to the 22. Now they're both really extraordinary in different ways. The 1222 is about the karmic connection between mammals and humans, because indeed we have a deep karmic connection. And in this relationship between them, the 12 and the 22, this is where there is a social dynamic that exists as a potential between man and mammal. You know, I've often speculated on that moment in quite ancient history when humans had to make some kind of bargain with dogs. Wild dogs hunting in packs, similar taste in food, similar body mass, very successful carnivores. They managed to spread all over the planet. And at some point, some kind of bargain had to be struck. That bargain, that 1222, that is where the bargain was struck. This is the ability of humans to reach out their hand to a mammal and embrace them as a relationship. And of course, we as even modern humans understand that. So many human beings have mammalian pets of one kind or another. The fact is that this is where that bridge exists. And then there is the 1949. And perhaps this is the most profound connection that exists between mammals and humans. It is one of, when you think of the tribe, you can never escape the bargain. The bargain that lies inherently in the 4037. And of course the 1949 being very much a part of that stream. This incredible bargain that humans made with certain mammals, not all mammals, but certain mammals, mostly herbivores. And the bargain was, we will protect you from predators. We will give you a secure territory. We will ensure that you have enough food to eat, and then we will sacrifice you as we see fit. That was the bargain. And the bargain is struck through the 1949. There is a Channel 88 course of mine about the transformation that will take place when the 1949 no longer functions as a channel, and what that will mean for our relationship with mammals in terms of our ability to maintain the food chain and our ability to maintain this incredible distorted supply of mammalian sacrifice we need to maintain our lives. I have no idea how long that will last. But anyway, that is a very strange cross-special connection. From the mammalian point of view, in terms of the herbivores, it's not so bad, by the way. It's one of the best deals they ever got in nature. That is, if you see them on the savannah where they are not protected, you understand how often and devastating their lives are insecure. It is one of the things that humans gave them in this bargain, is that security and peacefulness, that they are not threatened. However, obviously, there's a price that they pay for that. Okay, so let's now move from these bridging portals as we understand them from the perspective of the relationship between the mammal and the human, and let's see them within the context of the dream rave. And within the context of the dream rave, they are something else. How shall I put this? If you're a politician, you usually have a personal spokesperson. Somebody that speaks for you, a press secretary, these kinds of things, that kind of job. The portal gates in the dream rave are very much like that. They are the press secretary of the circuit. And everything about the circuit, until we get to the analytical level, everything about the circuit is really secondary to the way in which the being itself is going to feel about its dream life. Because you see, the moment that you're carrying a portal is the moment that the waking vehicle gets a special quality of information from that bridging portal. This is the whole thing about bridging portals. That is, they can move across special lines as they do between all different forms of life. And within the context of the dream rave, we can see this as integrating different levels, moving through different levels of consciousness. If we talk about all the other gates that are here in the light field, the 20, the 57, the 8, the 1, if we look at them, the fact is that the interpretation or the translation of what's actually happening to them in terms of how they're being programmed in the sleeping state never gets through clearly, because of course this has to be translated through all of the chemical reactions that ultimately will be part of the waking brain, and what it remembers of it and how it remembers it, all of which is initiated after the point. But the cross-special, or these portal bridges, they're different. In other words, they can emerge on the other side. Now there are exceptions. And there are exceptions because this will have to do with whether that 62 is something that is part of the solar fixation, that is, if it's part of the solar personality, or whether it is the lunar unconscious. And if it's the lunar unconscious, It is not as easily available on the surface and is something that would have to be interpreted through analysis. However, it does have a way of getting to the surface directly, if I can put it that way. You wake up with it. You notice that there is this blue heading, music to your ears. I was actually going to call it The Sound of Music, but I thought that would really be kitschy. So music to your ears, I guess we'll have to do. It's an allusion to the way in which it emerges. I'm going to be talking about emergence here in looking at these three different domains and understanding them in terms of the way in which the bridge portals work. There is a quality of emergence. Now, if you have strong light field, and if you're carrying particularly the 60-second gate, your dreams are disturbed by noise. Noise. Sounds that can be very frightening, eerie. It can also be the celestial choir. It was also one of the titles I nearly put here was the heavenly choir. Because it can also be the heavenly choir. You can hear all of this singing in the background and all of this. It can be just music. But it carries with it that quality. Now what's important about it is that if you awaken with the sound, the information of the dream will come to the surface. In other words, the information that is there. Now remember, we have a joke here. I do love the jokes. The theme of the 60-second gate, the theme of the 60-second gate is love. So love is in the detail. Oh, do remember that about the 60-second gate. Love is in the detail. So one of the things about this is that what is available here and keyed to the sound is detail. Real detail, not dream detail, not distorted information, but real data. I mean, real in the context of the Maya and all of its illusions and everything else, but within that context, information that is usable rather than information that may be fantastic or different or whatever the case may be. It is tuned by the sound or the music. Now, one of the interesting things about the light field portal being is that they can wake up in the morning with no sound, with no, music in their ear, no choir in the background. They simply wake up as they would wake up normally. And yet in the course of their day, at any given time that the right frequency is heard, the detail will suddenly emerge. As a matter of fact, it may not even emerge as, I got that from a dream. It may simply just emerge. And all of it cued to a specific frequency. It's like this, it was a terrible remake. I don't know if you saw it. Manchurian Candidate. But these people that are put under, very, very deep hypnotic states in which they are given, certain signals to react to in order to get them to do certain things. Frequency is one of those things. You hit a certain note, or you hit a certain, series of notes, and suddenly there is, something to do, whatever the case may be. It is a program, and it is tuned to the sound, and the sound will bring out the detail. Now that is something interesting. And not only is the 62 acting on its own, in a sense, but of course it is the press secretary of the circuit. And it will take with it anything that is there that has been processed in the circuit in order to bring out whatever detail is necessary. Now, by the way, this does not have to be spectacular in any way. It can be incredibly mundane. I mean, incredibly mundane. It's something to grasp. It isn't about, it happens so often to people. I mean, that they don't even know that it's the byproduct of a dream. And suddenly they've got certain details and it just clicks for them. And because the 60-second gate is a gate that is collective and it is logical, that it is always associated with the potential of seeing into the future, so to speak. So to speak. And of course, none of those views can ever be correct, in the sense that they can never be 100% accurate in any way. But elements of every future can always be seen. That is, it's possible. And it is something, that's music to this dreamer's ear. Anyone who carries light field activations, it is the sounds in the dream that are really something. It's not about the events that are taking place, though obviously when you have a gate like the 20th gate, the events, what one can see is always interesting, after all. But remember, this is the light field. This is, this is personality propaganda. This is looking at life through rose-colored glasses, I mean, there is a certain, it's kind of like a drug for the homogenized not self to give it the spirit to keep on keeping on. Don't get caught in the chimera of those dreams. Hear the sounds. Because it's the sounds that are the trigger. They're the trigger. And what we're going to see is that everything about these portal bridges is not about what they do while you're asleep, but what they can mean when you wake up. This is the thing that is least grasped. To try to understand the distortion that takes place between the moment that you are in the 15-gate matrix and the moment that ends and you have this flood of data that is the awakening of the vehicle, and all those other gates, all those 49 other gates, all of that turning on. And the only way that the information is moving is that it has to move chemically, and it will move through whatever chains are available, and in some places it will not make the journey. And then there is this attempt to try to understand what that is by the time, it comes to the neocortex of the awakened being. No, you have to see it as program, as mechanics, to get the actual detail of what's there. But when you're looking at the bridging portal, you always have this possibility, the possibility that has given all this dream stuff its reputation. The possibility that you can move from one state to another and carry the continuity of the information. And it's not so much that what you heard in the dream becomes your detail in terms of somebody telling you something or explaining something to you, because it's not that kind of process. It is literally that you're given a signal, a frequency signal. And it's that frequency signal, if it carries over to the waking state, or it arrives soon enough while it remains fresh in the waking state, then there's something that's released. This is its magic. You can't find it in the analysis. It's just, that's something special. And of course, this is where dream and dream analysis and dream interpretation, this is where it takes off and tries to turn this into some kind of a methodology. It's also, those beings who feel like dreams have to be personalized in order to be of value. Only portal gates are personal in that sense because they cross the dimensions. The rest of it is not personal. Can't be understood that way. But the moment that you stop trying to look at it personally, you then get to see what is your connection to it, which is very personal and much more profound. I like this one. You know, the earth plane is so fascinating because it's us. I mean, it's us digesting us or redigesting us. It's us processing us. And it's the great melting pot of the trial and error and frustration of the plane that we live on. And yet, you know, the earth plane, if the 12th gate is the spokesperson, the press secretary of this circuit, and if it is the synthesis in that sense of the expression of this circuit, then we know that this circuit is something that truly brings mutation. Mutation. And again, when we are looking at the 12th gate, and remember my description of this 1222, its relationship to the mammalian human, you know, this is quite something, you know, to step across this bridge, you know, to make friends with a creature. It's like these people who imagine what it would be like to befriend an alien, you know. Well, dogs are aliens. I mean, just because we've been familiar with them for about 14,000 years now doesn't mean that at one time they were not just simply alien, you know. This is an extraordinary place of mutation. After all, changing the social dynamic. And one of the aspects of the earth plane, this bridge portal, the way in which this bridge portal works is that you wake up with a solution. I mean, you just wake up with a solution. And it doesn't mean that you were dreaming about the solution. It doesn't. It doesn't mean you even remember if you were dreaming. It doesn't. You just wake up with the solution. That solution, by the way, is distilled from the homogenized earth plane program, where all kinds of things are being decided all the time. And in the neutrino ocean, the sleeper is programming it. In a sense, looking for its solution. And when its solution comes by, it wakes up with an answer. I've got it. There are some people who are famous for that. You know? Wake up and you have it. I mean, I know that. It's part of my dream rave. You know, I go to sleep without thinking about it. Have no memory whatsoever of a dream. And wake up with a realization for something. A solution of something. Now, by the way, as I said, it can be horrendously mundane. Because it's not about whether it's spectacular or not. It is about this multi-dimensional capacity that is inherent in these bridging portals. You know, they jump the dimensions. They don't go through this long process, what in fact in neurological time is a long process. By the time the strands of the chemistry that are the byproduct of the programming of the sleep state finally make their way into the brain and are processed. This is the magic of the bridging portal. This capacity to jump the dimension. And again, you know, here is that aspect of dreaming that makes it seem so personal. I mean, it does. The bridging portals is what gives us this sense that, you know, dreams are about us. And of course, if you don't have it specifically, if you're not impacted by it by transit, you know, then you assume that your dreams are for you because everybody else says so and they tell you these kinds of dreams. Oh, I woke up with this answer, you know. And everything about the information here in the earth plane, you know, all of the various aspects of it, that all of that is